Welcome to today's episode of Savvy Seniors. I'm Mary Dilley.
And I'm Jeanette Bach.
And today we have a special guest. We have Christine Morano, and she's an elder law lawyer. And we're going to talk about a contentious issue in this first segment. We're going to talk about long-term care and hospital discharge. And I want to start that segment off with the elephant in the room, Bill 7. Can you explain to everyone what Bill 7 is? Because it's really important that we know this.
So Bill 7 is the More Beds, Better Care Act. This was passed in August of this year, so it's very new. There's been a lot of media coverage about it, and what this new law does is it forces older adults who are waiting to go to long-term care, who are in hospital, to have to basically go to whatever bed becomes available. So it's a whatever bed comes up, they must accept it.
So we could have a woman, it could be your mother, and they could send her 75 kilometers away, and your dad is still living here, and he's also a senior, and no one can go to visit mom because she's 75 kilometers away. So not only can we not go visit her, you can tell how angry I get about this. Not only can we not go visit her, we don't know if she's being taken care of. Is that the truth?
So residents or patients can be moved to homes that are quite far from their preferred location, and their preferred location is usually close to their family, close to their home. And so in Southern Ontario, that is up to 70 kilometers away. In Northern Ontario, it's up to 150 kilometers away. And the reason or how this happens is the new law allows the physician at the hospital or the nurse to commence an application for long-term care. So in the past, consent was required for this process. Older adults were in charge of where they wanted to go, where they were going to go. Now an application for long-term care can be commenced. Eligibility can be determined without their involvement, without their family's involvement, and then admission can be authorized into the home. And all of this can happen without the older adult's involvement.
What if they refuse? What if they say, all my family's here in Burlington, I don't want to go?
So there are consequences with the new legislation. As of November of this year, there will be law in effect which says that the hospital shall charge $400 per day if you refuse to leave after being discharged. So shall, that's a must. The hospital must charge that amount. And so if the physician has determined that it's safe for you to go home, you no longer require acute care, and long-term care is being explored, and you've been determined eligible, your admission's been authorized to a shortlisted home, which it's likely shortlisted for a reason. And you say, I'm not going. Nobody can physically put their hands on you and force you to go into long-term care. But that charge is looming over you. And it's not just about those patients who refuse to go to long-term care. It's also about those situations where patient may require rehab. They may require chronic care. They may require psychiatric care. But the physicians determined that they no longer require acute care, and so discharge is a discussion that's being had. And so if the physician is of the view that it's safe for you to leave, and those are the options proposed, and the patient refuses to accept, or their substitute decision maker refuses to accept, then the $400 charge
a day.
$400
a day.
Right.
7 days a week.
$12,000 a month.
Is, given what we know of the legislation, is going to be charged.
So Christine, what happens, because I work with a lot of people that have dementia and sometimes behavioral issues, and they end up in the hospital because there is no private retirement community that will keep them because of their behaviors. So these types of individuals, if they're mandated to leave the hospital and go into long-term care, are they going to behavioral units, or those long-term care homes that have behavioral units in them to get the proper care that they need, essentially?
It's a complicated question. with a complicated answer.
Yeah, okay.
So it has always been the case that residents, patients who have like behavioral issues, they should have the resources and staffing and support in long-term care to address those needs,
Yes.
whether or not they have behavioral units, because
Yes.
that, in my opinion, is what long-term care is set up for.
Yes.
Having said that, there are homes that have more specialized units, such as behavioral units. And it's always, I think home and community care, they've always tried to place residents accordingly.
Right.
And homes that feel they can't support residents can reject their admission. They can
Yes.
say, we cannot meet your care needs, we're not going to accept you. And that, I'm sure, will continue to happen. And the bigger question here for me, and what's scary, is what happens to those patients in hospital who have these behavioral issues and may require psychiatric care. If a long-term care home is not going to take them and the hospital is saying you're no longer acute, you need to leave, I think we're going to see these patients end up in the community in very dangerous and risky circumstances, unfortunately, because most people can't afford to pay $400 a day.
No, it gets upwards to that if they require one-to-one care from private home care. So I'm always most concerned, because on the other side of it, if somebody has dementia, who's advocating for them if they're 70 kilometers away, 150 kilometers a day? So can patients and caregivers challenge the hospital in those situations, or what happens?
So because the legislation is so new, we're still trying to figure out how can this be challenged, what can be done. In my view, and I've taken sort of the advice from the Advocacy Center for the Elderly, who also specializes in this, I am telling clients to tell home and community care that they are not consenting to the release of their personal health information.
That's right.
And so then it cannot be disclosed to the long-term care homes. And why I believe that's allowed is because there's nothing in the new legislation that says that it authorizes the Personal Health Information and Protection Act, which requires consent to disclose personal health information. So that's currently what we're telling people. And I'll just add that physicians are still obligated and are still legally required to safely discharge patients, and they're still subject to all of their professional obligations that their college sets out for them.
So if something like this happens, the first person we should call is a lawyer, and specifically an elder law lawyer.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. And my next question, just a quick one, is do people end up in long-term care because they can't afford retirement homes?
Some of them do, but there are many reasons why individuals end up in long-term care. One of them being their care needs may be too high for retirement living. Their care needs may be too high to be in the community. They may not have the funds to support home care. So there's a variety of reasons. It could be that the long-term care home is close to their family, to their loved ones.
Okay, thank you.